Welcome back to the Player Zone YouTube channel. And as it came out last night, Everton have officially been deducted 10 points from the Premier League this season. Massive news, massive for financial fair play, breaking some rules, Everton. But the big news overnight is it really fair? I really am for, the doctoring of points if teams are breaking the rules, because right now financial fair play seems to be a bit of a Mickey Mouse rule. It seems to be there, talked about, but never actually followed. So I'm fine with taking points off teams, but 10 points, the biggest amount taken off a Premier League side in history. Obviously, we had Middlesbrough and Portsmouth in the past, the biggest being 9 points, but now 10 points. Portsmouth had 9 taken away for administration. This is 10 for breaking one single rule. And I think where the frustration comes is that Man City are breaking over 115 or something, or allegedly broken over 115 financial fair play rules, and nothing's happened yet. There's long court cases that we don't hear much about. Everton breaks one rule, and all of a sudden, in sort of 5 or so months, there's been 10 points deducted off them. I'll take you through what's gone on first before we dive into a bit of discussion about it. So obviously the 10 points has been deducted, the harshest in Premier League history. And it all comes off the Premier League rule, which states that clubs can lose a maximum of £105 million over a 3-year period, in which Everton exceeded this amount by £19.5 million. They were deemed to, after calculation, breach the profit and sustainability rules, and it sort of relates back to the end of the 21-22 season. So it seems a little bit harsh on the fans, considering this is a time where they were starting to build a new stadium. COVID hit clubs for 6, and they had that the problem with the ownership, with the Ukrainian and Russian war that was going on as well. So it was a really, really tough time for Everton as a football club, tough time for all football clubs during COVID, but Everton had a lot going on as well. So, they've targeted a really tough period of time. They were paying players a lot of money. You think with James Rodriguez and big name players at the club, they were paying a lot of wages. They're trying to push on from being that mid-table club to being a European club. It obviously didn't quite work out on the football pitch, and as such, all those wages, the new stadium, COVID seasons, the profit obviously was not there, and it's come back to hurt them now. In addition to this, Leeds, Leicester, Burnley and Southampton are all trying to take legal action against Everton, because these are teams that all went down where Everton survived based on, these illegal payments and illegal actions against the Premier League rules. So, I think it was last season where Leeds and Burnley wrote to the Premier League questioning Everton's £317.8 million losses across the last 3 years. And after the 5-day hearing, it was deemed that they did break and exceed those £105 million losses over the past 3 years. So, as I said, the biggest sanction handed down in the Premier League history, 10 points, topping that of Portsmouth, which was 9 points of being in administration a few years back now. In terms of their current Premier League season, they were sitting 14th on 14 points. It'd been a great turnaround for Everton. They won 2 out of the last 3 games, 7 points from 9 of the last 3 games. They're always feeling well. They're looking up instead of looking behind them. But now only 2 points from safety, sitting in 19th, 4 points. Now on the table, going for that 14 points, a massive turnaround. And, they've got a big few games coming up in terms of just football, looking at the football pitch itself. Manchester United, Forest, Newcastle next 3 games, followed by Chelsea as well. So, this Christmas period could be quite tough for them. They could be sitting in the relegation zone for that period. The only real shining light is, as I said on the podcast about 2 weeks back, they've probably got in the right season where the bottom 3 teams, being Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United, are very poor. They should be able to get out of it. But I think that's not really the frustration. I think the frustration is the sheer amount of points. 10 points is a lot of points to be deducted, especially considering what was going on. I think they've instantly appealed it, awaiting, another trial, which could take 2 to 3 months as well. So they could be on minimal points for a long, long time. I do expect them to be safe. Relegation, I don't think will be a threat, but where they are, and with the games coming up, it's always a threat. And coming up to this Christmas period where there's game after game, if they drop a few points, they could be battling relegation where they ideally would be safe. The way they're going this season, are looking, as I said, above them, not below them, but with all these 10-point deductions, they're absolutely in the relegation race now. It is only 2 points away from safety, but all it takes is one poor result and you're back in there. So they're now fighting an uphill battle, not only off the pitch, but on the pitch to stay safe, especially with the promise of the new stadium being ready next season. You don't want to be debuting that new stadium in the Championship. So a lot of things going Everton. I just feel sorry for the fans. A great little turnaround here. Sean Dyche playing some good football, and then all of a sudden it comes crashing down. They were all things looking good. I know it's all memes, but they were talking about, making a European push, and it wasn't really realistic, but it was that good vibe around Everton again. The fans are behind the club. They were playing great football, but it just changed things once again. They have to go through more heartache of a third season around the relegation zone, which is probably something they do not want to be doing. And I think the frustration for me is not only the 10 points, but when you've got Chelsea and Man City with 115 allegations of breaching FFP, why aren't they being addressed before Everton? Everton with one single breach. And if it's a breach, it's a breach. I like the way the Premier League have sanctioned them. But the amount, 10 points for one breach. If Man City have hypothetically had 40 breaches, mate, send them down to send them down to League 1, League 2, the non-leagues. Because it's ridiculous. They've gone and won trebles, 6 out of the last 8 Premier Leagues, some shit like that. And because they've gone about it in illegal matters. And now that they've got the best legal teams in the world, they'll probably get away with it. But Everton, with one single breach, brought them into the relegation zone, and the threat now of going down. And I don't think they will go down, but let's just say how it is. They're now in a relegation zone because of one mistake. And the mistake should be, they should be held accountable to that. But what about Man City? What about Chelsea? What about the 115 allegations that Man City had against them? I just don't think it is fair that Everton's are handed down so quickly within 4 or 5 months of it being brought up, whereas Man City's have been brought up for years after years. The threat of it, this middle point of last season as well, where those points potentially taken off them. Nothing's been happened from that either. So we've got this team dominating the world, dominating Europe, dominating England, and potentially should be or could be sanctioned to he kicked out the league. That's the easiest way I can see it happening. I think that's where the frustration comes from Everton fans, from Premier League fans, that Everton with one single mistake is already be sanctioned in less than half a year, whereas Man City's ongoing discrepancies, which have been brought up multiple times, yet to be sanctioned, yet to have nothing being put on them. And if they're holding up these 10-point levels, I think Man City can say see you later to the English top flights, because they'll be down in the lower leagues. If it's all being said. So I think it's a bit unfair they target the small club in this situation. I think that's where all the anger and all the frustration comes from. But I guess it's breaking news. It shows that Premier League isn't mucking around with FFP, and I think it's about time that the Premier League or UEFA actually take sanction on this, because it's always brought up in discussions and key breaking news, but nothing ever happens from it. So it's a step in the right direction, at least to keep clubs and teams accountable. But the fact that they've targeted Everton, I feel, is so harsh. It's so very unfair, I think. And I just want to hear what happens out of these Chelsea and Man City allegations, because if it takes them 5 months to do this, why can't we have a turnaround within a year or year and a half for Man City? At least sanction them for the first 20 alleged, breakings of the rules. Because FFP before this current point in time was basically just a word or a little buzzword for the league. It was never really something that was going to do anything to you. But now we've seen it being actioned. It's a sign going in the right direction, and hopefully more teams can be held accountable, because if Man City can get away with this, I think the league will boil over. The fact that Everton have been held accountable but not Man City. So be interesting to see what happens. Man City will put the best lawyers in the world to try and stop them, stop it all happening. But I hope the Premier League can find some allegations against them, because it just seems so harsh that a team making one mistake in a tough period can get, put down in a relegation zone where one of the biggest teams in the world could possibly have gotten away with it for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years and could get away with it going forward again. So that's all to come. I just had to touch on it because I guess it's the biggest breaking news from the weekend. No Premier League action on the weekend, so it is the biggest thing going around Premier League football news at the moment. But Everton, they'll challenge it. We'll see how they go. But tough season for them to come now. They're in the relegation zone. They have to work their way back out and keep that good form going, because very, very tough week for them and their fans. I feel sorry for the Everton fans, but I do back your team in. I think they'll be safe this season. Lucky that there's some really, really poor teams in the league. If it happened last season, it would be very, very tough times for Everton. Anyway, with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the Players Zone channel for more Premier League football podcast-based content. And I'll see you guys for another episode very, very soon. See you later.